ReliaQuest mental performance coach Derin McMains interviews top performers across multiple industries to unpack their mindset and their strategies that has helped them dominate in their arena so you can dominate in yours. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. And today, we got a big one. We got NFL Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy with us today. Coach, thank you so much for creating some space for us and choosing to join us today.
Well, thank you. And it's so cool for me to be back in this environment here at One Buck Place. Great memories and just special to be here. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you who made this possible is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, specifically Tampa Bay Buccaneers National Coaching Academy, which this is probably one of the coolest things out there that I don't know if everybody knows about. It's amazing what the Glazer family's doing and how they're creating pathways for young coaches, men, women, to find the opportunity to come and coach in the NFL. And for those of you out there that are listening that are like, hey, I want to be a part of this. Applications are open right now. You can go to the website. More information can be found at buccaneers.com/National Coaching Academy. And I'm telling you, get your application. It is unbelievable. You get to work with coaches like Tony Dungy. And so, Coach, I'm just going to ask you, what is your favorite part about being a part of the National Coaching Academy?
Well, it's so special to me because probably the number one question I get asked from people who I don't know is, hey, I'm a young guy, I'm in high school, or I just finished college. I want to get into coaching. How do I do it? How can I get going? Who would you recommend for me to talk to? And in the past, I'd always say, well, just work hard and do the best you can and keep fighting and keep your nose to the grindstone. But now to be able to tell them, hey, you might want to apply. Here's one place where you can learn some things, but you can also meet some people that can help you in those next steps. And so I think it's great both ways. It helps us get to know some of these young, talented people, but then it helps them learn the ropes and how they want to proceed.
What are some things that you share with some of the coaches that are here at the National Coaching Academy? Like what can some of these young coaches potentially expect to learn if they get selected?
Well, I think they can learn how it works, number one. But I think they also learn some other things by being around some of these talented coaches that maybe some of your perceptions of what you had to do might not be exactly accurate, and how to learn and how to go about growing. And I always talk to them, boy, it is a learning process. The more you learn, the better you're going to be. And then eventually you're going to get a chance to demonstrate that. But if you learn how to do things, how to communicate, and how to build, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. When you say how to build what specifically?
Build not just your resume, but build on the knowledge that you have. And hey, you grew up a certain way, you learned how to do things. This is my perception of football. But if I can get around some other people, boy, that maybe can add to it a little bit. Sure. And then how are you going to get that message across? The things you know, the things you believe in, you can get them across in a certain way and it turns people off. Or you can present it in a certain way that says, man, that's interesting. I want to learn more. I want to hear more from this dude. Yeah. And that's, to me, what you get from this academy as well. That, there's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ways to play football, but the big thing you want as a coach is to be able to get your knowledge across to your people.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's hands-on experience. It's like you're coming in at rookie camp, and then if you get selected as a finalist, you get to come back and actually go through NFL training camp, which is incredible.
And to me, that is the most special part because you get to see how a training camp runs. You get to not only take part in it and help, but you learn what it's all about. And you can take that experience with you, and to be hands-on and to be in the meetings and to see how game plans are put together and to see how training camp practices are structured and why. It's really, really a unique experience that, you just can't get anyplace else.
Yeah, you really can't. It's really, really cool what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing here, and not just in this community, but also across the league and across the country. And shoot, I think there's even international coaches that have joined. So,
and the thing, I have to take my hat off to the Bucs organization. It's good for them because every now and then you're going to see that diamond in the rough that you say, let me keep an eye on this guy. He's going to be pretty special, or this lady now. But to give dozens of people opportunities to grow and go back to their school and be better and to help them progress. I think that's just awesome and just fantastic, and I'm happy to be part of it.
That's great. And I want to talk about you a little bit, you as a coach and your coaching journey. Every great journey starts somewhere. And I'm thinking about you as a young boy, young man. I'm curious, can you share a small personal moment from your early years that you would say was really impactful in shaping you into the person and the leader that you've become?
My dad was a special guy. He was a college biology teacher, but he loved to explore the why of things. And so he would take me to games when I was a little kid growing up in Michigan, University of Michigan, football games, Detroit Lions football games. And he used to park a long ways away from the stadium. And I thought at that time because he was cheap.
Cheap.
He didn't want to,
Yeah.
But we'd come back after the games, we'd walk back to the car, and he'd say, "What'd you think about that? Why did they do this? Or, how come they didn't throw the ball to this guy more?" And he was always talking to me about what happened in the game. And I didn't realize then that he was just trying to get me to see more than just the final score, just what happened. And then one day he took me to a basketball game. There was this coach named Lofton Green. He was a legendary basketball coach, and he was from our hometown. They won, I think, 11 state championships, high school state championships. So he's telling me about this guy. He's a great coach. Took me to the game, and I watched the team. They were a buzzsaw, but Coach Green was just like the whole time just sitting there. And my dad asked me afterwards, "What did you think?" I said, "Well, man, the team is really good, but I didn't see Coach Green even say a word." And my dad said, "Well, as a teacher, I can tell you that you teach during the week. You don't talk during the test." And that really came through to me, that if you teach during the week and you have your students ready to go, you don't have to help them during the test. And that stuck with me. I think I was 10 or 11 years old when my dad told me that.
Isn't that something how... And I think it's just the power of words. How sometimes a message just hits home so much that you can speak it word for word, and that happened when you're 10, 11 years old. And I think that's the power of coaching. Like, what else do you have other than your message?
Yeah.
And so, like, how often are you working on it so you can say things and coach individuals in a way where it sticks like that, where years later you can still recall that? And I love that.
No, I thought about that. And then when I'm 21, I'm a rookie with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm playing for legendary Chuck Noll, and he told us in our first meeting, hey, 3 things going into winning football: know what to do, know how to do it, and do it. He said, our job as coaches is to teach you what to do and, more importantly, how to do it. And then your job is to do it. If we do our job, you're going to be ready. And if you do your job, we're going to feel good about it. And so for 10 years, I played 2 and coached there for 8. And that was it. When I was a player, I got to soak in all this information, and then I got to do what my coaches tell me. And then it flipped over when I joined the coaching staff. Oh, now the shoe's on the other foot. I got to make sure they know what to do and how to do it. And if I do my job well, we're all going to be confident because they'll do it. And it sounds very simple, but to me, that's the crux of coaching. That's what I learned from him, and that's what I try to pass on to these guys when they come in.
That's good.
As a coach, you want to learn the game. You want to learn what to do. You want to be able to teach your players how to do it. And then it's just a matter of communicating that to them.
That's great. Think about you as a young coach. You were the youngest assistant coach in NFL history at the age of 25.
That was crazy. Yes.
I can't wait to talk about it. And also the youngest coordinator in NFL history at the age of 28. So reflecting on that now, what do you think the team saw in you? What do you think Coach Noll saw in you that they would entrust you with such a pressure-packed position?
I was a quarterback in college, and the Steelers were in the middle of this Super Bowl run, and they had a guy named Terry Bradshaw, so they didn't need quarterbacks. But they called me up after the draft and said, you're a hard worker. Coach Noll likes smart guys who work hard. Would you consider changing positions? And we'll sign you if you will play defensive back. So I wanted to play with the best. I went there. But I think what he saw in me was somebody who was hungry. I didn't know anything. I'd never played defense in my life. So I'm asking questions at 100 miles an hour. What does this mean? What does that mean? And he's got that philosophy. Well, I got to teach you what to do and how to do it. And I was just soaking it in. So after 3 years, I wasn't a great player. I was kind of a borderline player. My career was over. I was 25 years old, and Coach Knoll called me, and he said, you really enjoy the game. You're a good communicator. You've learned both sides of the ball. I think you'd be a good coach. If it's something you would like to do, we'll create a position on the staff for you.
Wow, they created a position for you. Wow.
Yeah, we had 6 coaches at the time, and that was the whole staff. But he made me the kind of assistant, I guess they call him quality control coach now, where I did a lot of the paperwork and did the legwork for the coaches. And I loved it, and I loved helping young guys. But it was really a blessing to go there, not only to learn the game from him, but Coach Knoll gave me something else that I try to share with these young coaches too. He said, you cannot make football your whole life. We're going to win. That's important. You got to do your job, but you have to be a husband. You have to be a father. You have to be a community servant. You've got to be a family man as well as be a good coach. And I saw him model that. And he made it a point for us to enjoy our families and family time and get home at a decent hour and be able to do things in the community. And he had high standards. He expected us to do our jobs really well, but he expected us to do more than that. And that was such a blessing to grow up in that environment, because later on when I became the boss, that became important to me.
Sure, I bet so. What were some challenges that you encountered as a young coach? What was one or two that...
My first challenge was when I was a rookie player and had never played defense, I'm asking all these guys, Mel Blount and Jack Lambert and Joe Green, well, what does this mean? And what am I supposed to do here? Well, 3 years later, now I'm supposed to be the coach, and they're still on the team. Weren't you that guy that was just asking me what this meant? But they did. They treated me as a coach and treated me with respect. But it was something coaching my former teammates. And then the challenge became, how can I continue to develop this? How can I do this in my own way? And that's another piece of advice I got from Coach Knoll that was really fantastic. You have to be yourself. Don't try to be me. I'm hiring you because of who you are. And I like what I see in you. So continue to develop that and don't change. There's things that we have to get across and fundamentals and details, but you have to get it across in your own way. And that was really great advice too that I share with any young coach that I talk to. Know the game, learn the game, but be yourself and get it across in your own way.
Gotcha. Before we move on to you being a head coach, and I can't wait to hear the story too around maybe you interviewing initially. I would love for you to share that. But before we get there, you know what happens when, I was a former professional baseball player, but when I went into coaching, there's this moment of like, why didn't I do that? I wish I would have known that. Why didn't, like all of a sudden when you get into a different perspective, you start to realize like I should have done things a little bit differently when I was playing. And so I'm curious for you, when you reflect back on your rookie season and you're thinking back, you're this young kid out of the University of Minnesota and you're learning this new position. Like what's the thing that you wish you would have learned sooner or just learned your rookie year a little bit quicker that would have made you a little bit more impactful on the team?
Just how important preparation is and being ready and not having to react to things like they're new on the field, but if you kind of know what's coming and what's happening. And I was so busy learning what to do, sometimes that kind of didn't happen. But I can remember when I first joined the coaching staff, and a lot of things Coach Knoll told us I did as a player just because he said that's what we're supposed to do. Well, when I got on the coaching staff and he'd explain, well, we do this and here's why. And then the why, then the light bulb went, oh, that's why we do that drill. That's why this is important. That's why we have to get ready. And if I'd have known that, I probably would have approached it a little differently and maybe been better prepared.
I got you. So asking more, why do we do this versus what to do?
Okay, A, B, C, D, this is what we do. But if you know the why behind it, then that helps you ingrain it. And so as a coach, that really helped me. I'm not only going to tell my players what to do, but why and why it's important to do it this way.
Gotcha. So now you're climbing in the ranks and you're getting some opportunities to become a head coach. Would you mind sharing the story that you shared with me before we came on about interviewing with a specific team, and then what happened when you interviewed with the Bucs?
Well, as you mentioned, 28 years old, I get promoted to defensive coordinator. We go to the playoffs that year. We've got a top 5 defense in the NFL, and people start to say, wow, who is this young guy? Sure. I start getting some interviews for a head coaching job, and I finally got one that I really thought I had a chance to get. Had a great talk with the owner, and then at the end of the interview, he asked me, because I wasn't maybe the prototypical coach in the way I did it. He said, you don't raise your voice a lot. You don't yell at your players. I hear you don't like to use profanity. How are you going to keep our guys in line? We've got some tough guys. And I said, well, I think once I show them who I am and develop that relationship, and they have confidence in me, and I'm going to treat them with respect, I think I'll earn their respect, and they'll do it out of this mutual relationship we have. I think that's the way we'll discipline. And the guy looked across the table at me and said, not in the NFL, that won't work. So I didn't get the job. And I kind of shared that with some of my buddies, assistant coaches, and they said, well, in the future, maybe you don't tell them what you are. Tell them what they might want to hear, and you'll be better off. So the next year, I interviewed with the Buccaneers. Rich McKay was the general manager. I talked to him first, and he kind of liked me, said, I want to introduce you to our owner and just see how that fits. And sitting down with Mr. Glazer, and he kind of comes to the same thing, just how are you going to do this? And I started thinking, should I tell him the truth, or should I maybe tell him what I think he wants to hear? So I said, I've got to be myself. Coach Noel, be who you are. Don't change. So I reiterated the same thing, and Mr. Glazer looked at me and he said, that's exactly how I've raised my boys. That's what I'm looking for. And it was so that right then I knew I was in the right spot.
Yeah, wow. I bet that was so reaffirming, right? And as you mentioned, you knew you were in the right spot, whereas I think potentially young leaders and people that are interviewing and going for promotions, they might try to sell themselves and sell a version of themselves that's not real, and then you get in that spot and you don't feel good about it.
And you're not doing things the same way or what they expect, and it was right place, right time, right people. And I'll never forget my first year. I'm telling them how I'm going to do it. We're going to make these changes, and it's going to be slow but gradual. And then we start out, we're 0-5, and we have a bye week, and Brian and Joel say, hey, we'd like to see you. And I'm thinking, gosh, okay, this is it. They're not happy. And they said, no, we're going out to lunch. And they took me out to lunch, and they said, we just want you to know we're 100% behind you. We can see the improvement in the team. Don't read the newspapers. Don't worry about any of that. We're behind you.
Wow.
And we went out. We beat the Minnesota Vikings the next week, and that took us off. But it was just that sense of we are in this together. And the road is going to be bumpy at times, but we're in it together, and we're going to be fine. And that was one of the moments that really shaped my career.
How did that vote of confidence change how you operated in the locker room? Were you just more confident? Like, how did that show up?
It really helped, because you do have this idea and this way you're going to do things, and you do believe in it, but you're still not quite sure if everybody else does. Sure. And once they told me that, hey, we see, we believe, even though it hasn't shown up on the scoreboard yet, we still believe in you, that allowed me to continue just to stay on that course. And we slowly turned it around. We finished up winning 5 of our last 7 that year, and we took off the next year in '97. But it was really a lot due to that fact that they did show that belief in me.
No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, the global leader in AI cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams contain threats in minutes with its agentic AI security operations platform, Gray Matter. ReliaQuest makes security possible for the most trusted enterprise brands in the world. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. Can we talk a little bit just about the Tampa 2? You and the late, great Monty Kiffin were innovators. You ushered in an entirely new defense. And for those that are listening that maybe aren't familiar with the Tampa 2, I'm sure you've played Madden football. And so Madden football, Tampa 2, this guy right here, Coach Kiffin, great defense inside the red zone in Madden football. I'll just say for that. But you as a leader, how did you How did you bring this to the team? How did you say, hey, trust this approach, although it hasn't been done yet? This is, because I think about leaders are trying to sell an innovative new approach or a new process to some of the people on the teams that they get to serve and lead. And so what was your approach to that?
Yeah, we had a defensive philosophy. Monty, Kevin, and I had been together at Minnesota, so we actually put it together in Minnesota. Wow. And we had success with it, but we had some great defensive players, some guys who are in the Hall of Fame now, Chris Dolman, John Randall, had success. So we come down here to Tampa. They've had 13 straight losing seasons, and a lot of the pieces to the puzzle were here, but it was just putting it together and getting them to believe. And we came in our first meeting and said, gentlemen, this is how we're going to play. It's not going to be complicated. We're not going to do a lot of blitzing. We're not going to have a lot of different schematics. It's going to be just base, hustle, discipline, effort. That's what we're going to win with. And people always want to look at the X's and O's of Tampa too. But what it really is that based on those three characteristics: discipline, being where you're going to be, hustle all the time, and effort. And one of the key moments I'll never forget, we were playing Minnesota, and Robert Smith was a Big Ten sprint champion, and he broke a run down the left sideline. Warren Sapp actually ends up catching him at the 5-yard line or 10-yard line. And we're in the film room on Monday, and Rod Marinelli, our defensive line coach, says, okay, Warren, I like this. It's a good job catching him, but you got a loaf on this play. And Warren says, how can I get a loaf? I caught the fastest guy in the NFL on the other side of the field. How are you giving me a loaf? And Rod ran the projector back, and he said, see these first 3 steps? You're not running as fast as you can. Now you're sprinting. You might have caught him at the 15 if you'd have sprinted all the way. So that first part, that's a loaf. And that was kind of the essence of Tampa too, that you play all out all the time. Anytime that camera's on, the film is rolling, you better be hustling. And that's what we expect. And once we got that across, boy, that defense was hard to beat after that.
I'm going to guess a loaf was a stat that you guys created to measure effort.
Yes. Yeah. And you didn't, if you got 1 L, it was a bad day, and you didn't want to get that. If you had 2 or 3, it just couldn't happen. And so guys, that became our standard, and the guys bought into it. And so we just had a team that played fast and flew around and played hard from whistle to whistle. And that became kind of the emblem of Tampa football.
Wow, that's great.
And then we had the same thing on offense. Mike Allstott came and brought that just energy, and that, boy, it's never over until it's over. You can stop me at the 1-yard line, but some way I'm going to get this ball in the end zone. And I think that's why that is probably what our fans enjoyed most. Yeah, they enjoyed the winning, but just to see these guys go out and play all out every Sunday.
Sure. And hearing you describe the Tampa 2 around discipline, hustle, and effort, on top of your faith, on top of who you are as a man, that's what makes character so important, because those are all character traits, right?
Believe it or not, we used to have a character grade for our draft choices. We have all our scouts go out, yes, and we want to hear height, weight, speed, strength, all of that. We want to give them an athletic grade, but I want you to do the background homework on them. Talk to the professors, talk to the academic counselor, talk to the equipment man, talk to other assistant coaches. Talk to teammates. Who is this guy as a person? Is he a Buccaneer? And we want to give them an A, B, C, D, F grade, and we're not taking anybody below a C.
Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Wow.
And we had a list on our draft board, DNDC we called it, do not draft character. And there were some guys who you would recognize as Hall of Fame names on our board that we were not going to draft because they didn't fit the Buccaneer profile. And we stuck with that, and that was as big a part of our success as anything as well.
Wow. And did you take those same philosophies, principles with you to the Indianapolis Colts as well? And so that was just, it is what Coach Dungy does.
Yep, that's how we're going to do it, and we're going to get good men, and we're going to make a difference. I'll never forget, again, in our first meeting, I told our guys, hey, I'm here as your new coach because we haven't been winning. You've had 13 straight losing seasons, and I'm here to bring a winner. But I want us to be winners not only on the field, but off the field. If we're not winners in the community, if we're not making a difference, if we're not making Tampa a better place to live, then we've only done half the job. And so now to sit here 25 years later and see some of the things that our guys have done in the community, and John Lynch and scholarships and work done and homes for the holidays, and Derek Brooks taking care of YMCA kids. And I'm as proud of that as the wins and their Super Bowl, because that's what we wanted to establish, and that's what those guys did.
Sure, it's amazing. We had Derek Brooks on here. He's been on a couple times, actually. We had him, a few years ago, but he mentioned that same story, that like right when you showed up, that was the first thing that you told them. And so it's fun for me to be on this other side that I'm like, I didn't think Derek was making it up, obviously, but it was obviously so impactful to him that he still lives by that, right? And obviously he's a great man, but I think you two together probably just exponentially multiplied each other's impact in the community.
Well, he came to me after our first year and he said, Coach, I'm telling you all the things you preach. We need big plays, we need energy, we need effort, we need character. We got to draft Warrick Dunn. I played with Warrick at Florida State. We've got to get him. He was on the table every day. He's going to make a difference. And when your players buy into that, and then everybody understands that's how we're going to do it, that's what makes it. That's when your message has gotten through, and we're going to be together as a team because we all believe the same thing.
That's great. I want to talk just a little bit about coaching a few guys. You coach some of the NFL's greatest players in their era. You think about Derek Brooks, as you mentioned, Rondé Barber, Warren Sapp, John Lynch, and then Dwight Freeney, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, and of course, obviously Peyton Manning. When you reflect on those guys, like what was the common thread, if there was, beyond talent, right? But what was the common thread that made those guys legendary?
Common thread was work ethic, without question. They're coachable. They wanted to win, but ready to put in the work. It doesn't matter. Peyton Manning is going to work on Mondays on the things that didn't go well on Sunday. Derek Brooks is going to be the first guy in watching tape. Rondé Barber, just hard work year after year after year after year after year 10, year 11, year 12. I'm still going to demonstrate that, and I'm going to be a role model for the young guys and do things the right way all the time. And you couldn't outwork those guys.
That's great. I'm thinking about game planning each week. Let's start defensively. Who was the toughest player that you had to game plan for that you're like, ooh?
Without question, Barry Sanders. You could do everything right, have everybody in position perfectly, say, I wouldn't draw this defense any differently, and he makes 25 yards because he made 3 people miss and, ran around through. He was just, and I told him at the end of his career, I said, man, you're the reason I don't have hair anymore. And he was just such a nice guy, and just, thank you, coach. It's always tough playing against your defenses. But you could do everything perfect, and it didn't matter. Sometimes he could just go off. I never wanted to play against him.
Yeah, other side of the ball now, offensively, who was the toughest when you look across the ball? Like, who's the toughest guy you had to prepare for?
The toughest defender?
Toughest defender, yes.
Reggie White. Yeah.
What made Reggie White?
Same thing. You could double team him. You could have everybody in place, and somehow he was going to just make that play with that strength and speed and desire to turn things around. Green Bay was, they were our nemesis at that time. Favre was exceptional, and Reggie, and they were great leaders, and we had to play them twice a year. So I would say that Barry Sanders and Reggie White.
Gotcha. I want to go back to the draft, and we got just a couple more questions. I know we're running out of time here. When I think about the cannot draft because of character list, how did you all reach alignment in the room where I've sat in a few Major League Baseball draft rooms where there's scouts that are, no, we can coach it out of them, or our culture can absorb it. Like I've heard that a few times, and that doesn't work, by the way. So, but I'm just curious, like, how did you all get to alignment when there was some disagreement in the draft room on who you're going to select?
We didn't have many disagreements because we just said, we know what we're looking for. And at first it was, well, this guy's super talented, and maybe can't we just make one exception? And I would always say, I don't have that much time. I'm coaching 48 guys. I can't spend half my time with one guy. So I'm sorry, we just can't do it. And once we got everybody on board that, hey, we don't even talk about those. If this guy is a little bit of a problem, we just move on to the next guy. There's enough talented players out there that we aren't going to have to compromise our beliefs. And we never did. We never did.
Good for you. And I think that just speaks to the value of leaders establishing standards. And then there's standards that you adhere to. There's not just standards that you put on a wall and say to the media, but it's actually, no, we live them and it's non-negotiable. I think it's great. Your demeanor, obviously so calm. And I'm curious, how do you drive a sense of urgency into the players with just your essence? How do you do that?
Well, most of my players, if you had them on here, they'd all say, we had one sign in the locker room for the 6 years I was here, and it was just 6 words: expectations, execution, no excuses, no explanations. And even though I was a pretty low-key and mild-mannered guy, I didn't raise my voice a lot, we had very, very high expectations. I expect us to practice like champions, to play like champions, to represent our organization like champions off the field, and nothing below that is going to be acceptable. And so if you have those high expectations and you drill that into everybody, then everybody holds each other accountable.
Yeah.
And I can remember many times Derek Brooks telling the young, hey, we don't do that here with the Bucks. We just don't do that. The coach wouldn't even have to say anything.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's what you're looking for. So to me, it kind of went back to my dad telling me about Coach Lofton Green. When you teach well, you don't have to talk during the test.
That's good. It's such a full circle moment. Just 2 more, if we can. I think about your high expectations. Obviously, knowing you're a man of Christian faith, and how much of faith calls for compassion. And how do you, and I know Christian leaders struggle with this, it's balancing grace with accountability. I think sometimes they see those as different,
and
right?
They don't have to be.
They don't have to be, right?
Yes.
So like, how have you processed that quote unquote tension, we'll call it, between grace and accountability?
I think we have to understand that being graceful and being full of grace doesn't mean you negate the truth. So if you're not playing up to your potential, it's not grace to me to say, oh, you're doing okay, you're doing a good job. No, sure. I expect more out of you, Derin, than that. You can do better than that, and I need you to do better than that. And here's how we can do it. So yeah, I'm going to do it in a nice way, a great way, but I'm going to pull that out of you. And I always tell young coaches when I talk to them, I say, hey, the guy has a fumbling problem. You want him to hang on to the ball. There's 2 ways you can say, hey, the next time you fumble, I'm cutting you. Or you can say, you know what, you have so much talent. If you can just hang on to the ball, you can be an all-pro. You can make tons of money. You can help us win. And all you have to do is hang on to the ball, but you've got to do that. Now, both of them are the truth.
Absolutely.
But how is that guy going to respond? And what's going to help him? And again, that was something that I told my players in the first meeting too with the Bucks. I said, there are a lot of people that tell me that I need to curse at you and I need to scream at you and I need to yell at you to get you to play your best. That's just how the National Football League is. How many of you guys in this room need me to curse at you and yell at you to play your best? And I waited about 30 seconds. Nobody raised their hand. I said, okay, we understand each other then.
I love that. That's so good. I know we're right up against it. And so we do have one question that we always finish every No Show Dogs podcast with. And first, just let me say, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for this. I'm so grateful for you to share your hard-earned wisdom with us. And I think about your career. Not only were you inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but you're also in 2 Rings of Honor, which, again, I don't know how many people have that. And maybe you're the only one. I don't know. But both in Indianapolis, obviously here in Tampa. And so incredible career. And the final question, again, that we always ask is all around this idea of like, what is a no-show dog, right? And it's just about like, don't talk about it, be about it, right? And it's like, it's about being a hunting dog. Like if you got to go do the job and it looks dirty, that's okay, go do the job. And, effort and hustle like we talked about earlier. And so when you reflect on your career, what do you think were some of the things that you've been willing to do that maybe others haven't, that has allowed you to have the career you've had?
I think probably 2 things for me: being true to myself and being who I am. I got that from the Steeler organization, and that helped me. But then I think my mom and dad and their mantra, they were both teachers, and I can remember hearing them say over and over and over again, my job is to help my students get A's. And my job is not to be the strictest teacher or the most know-it-all, but I've got to help every student. And that might be a little different. Johnny may need something different than Billy needs to get an A, but I need to help both of them. And so I always felt that was my job, to help my players be the best that they could be. And if I could do that and really reach everybody on an individual level and then give them what they needed to succeed, then I was going to succeed. And so it was just all about, and the Bible talks about that the greatest among you is going to be the servant. And I always looked at myself that way. I'm here to serve my players. And that's another message I try to get across to the coaches in this academy.
Yeah.
We're really here to help. We're not here to be the star. We're here to help our players.
That's great. I told you that was the last question, but now you brought up servant leadership. And so I want to follow up a little bit on that, because, again, I'm thinking about young coaches out there that are going, how can I get to the National Coaching Academy to learn from Coach Dungy and some other great coaches that are here? And so you describe a little bit, how would you define servant leadership, and then how does it show up for you in a locker room?
It's funny, I talked about this, and again, I got it from Coach Knoll. In most organizational charts, it would be, the bottom tier would be maybe the players, then it's the assistant coaches, then the coordinators, and then the head coach, and then the general manager, and then the owner. And so everybody has this feeling of, I want to climb to the top of that pyramid because that's the most important point. But Coach Knoll said, no, you need to flip that around. Okay, the players are the most important. They're on the top. Everybody else is there to support them. And so that owner, that GM, that head coach, you're there to support them and make them be the best they can be. And if you look at it that way, then that's a responsibility. But if you're there to serve and you have to figure out how to help each tier above you, that's how you're going to be successful. And so that, to me, is how I try to do it. How can I pick the best players, the best assistant coaches, the best staff, and then support them to be the best they could be?
Beautiful, beautiful. Coach, thank you so much for, again, being who you are, sharing the wisdom that you've shared. We've had some, players, former Bucks on here, and they all speak so highly of you, and just for you to share today is, we can totally see why, and so we just really appreciate you.
Thank you. It's awesome being here. Again, I'm so proud of the Bucks and what they've done with this academy. And I get to go out. I see, we broadcast all over the country, and I see guys who took part in the academy, and they're coaching. Maybe they're the assistant to the assistant at the, Pittsburgh Steelers, but
Sure.
They say, man, I learned so much at that academy, and it's been such a blessing, and it's been awesome. It really has.
I love it. So, hey, make sure you guys get your applications filled out. Closes December 31st. Make sure you do that again. That can be found at Buccaneers.com/National Coaching Academy. Again, Coach, thank you so much. And for our listeners, go out and make it a great today.